March 8, 1968. Somewhere in the North Pacific, a Soviet submarine vanishes without a trace. The K-129, carrying 98 men, 3 nuclear ballistic missiles, nuclear torpedoes, and cryptographic secrets that could reshape the Cold War, simply disappears. No signal, no debris, no survivors. Moscow launched a massive search. Ships, aircraft, weeks of desperate scanning across open ocean. They found nothing. Eventually, the crew was declared lost. Their families told almost nothing, and the ocean kept its secret, but not from everyone. Stretched invisibly across the Pacific floor, the U.S. Navy's SOSUS hydrophone network had heard the whole thing. The explosions, the groaning hull, the final collapse of a submarine being crushed by the sea. And from those sounds, American analysts pinpointed her location. Within 6 miles, 16,500 feet down, nearly 3 miles beneath the surface, where pressure exceeds 7,000 pounds per square inch and sunlight has never reached. In July 1968, the spy submarine USS Halibut crept silently to those coordinates. Over several weeks, her cameras descended into absolute darkness and photographed the wreck in extraordinary detail. The broken hull, periscopes still extended, and chilling glimpses of human remains. But surrounding those remains were 3 nuclear missiles, torpedo systems, and cryptographic equipment that could unlock Soviet naval communications for years. The CIA made a decision that would consume the next 6 years and billions of dollars. They were going to bring it up. The engineering challenge was unlike anything ever attempted. Nobody had recovered anything from that depth. Nobody had even come close. So the CIA did what the CIA does. They invented a solution from scratch. They would build an entirely new ship, lower a house-sized mechanical claw 3 miles on a string of steel pipes, grab the most valuable section of the hull, and slowly winch it back to the surface, all while the world watched and believed they were mining manganese nodules from the ocean floor. For their cover story, they needed a name big enough to kill curiosity before it started. They chose Howard Hughes. The reclusive billionaire lent his Summa Corporation as the perfect veil of deniability. Nobody questioned Howard Hughes. That was almost his entire brand. Construction began in secret in Chester, Pennsylvania. What emerged was the Hughes Glomar Explorer, 619 feet long, displacing 50,000 tons, and unlike any ship ever built. At her center was a moon pool, a massive sealed chamber cut through the bottom of the hull that could swallow the claw and its recovered cargo whole, invisible to any satellite or Soviet vessel above. A 24-story derrick disguised as an oil rig rose overhead. Computer-controlled thrusters held the ship motionless over a target 3 miles below, and the claw itself, nicknamed Clementine by the crew, was built separately in a secret California barge, engineered by Lockheed to grip 14 million pounds of load and hold. The total cost reached somewhere between $350 million and $800 million in 1970s dollars, the equivalent of up to $4 billion today, the most expensive single intelligence operation of its era. On June 20th, 1974, the Glomar departed Long Beach. She arrived at the recovery site on July 4th, Independence Day. Almost immediately, Soviet ships appeared on the horizon, circling with binoculars and helicopters. The American crew kept working. They were miners. They were always miners. The Soviets watched for days, decided the operation was exactly what it claimed to be, because their own engineers had told them raising a submarine from this depth was technically impossible, and eventually moved on. That miscalculation would cost them dearly. Pipe by pipe, 60 feet at a time, the string descended through the moon pool into darkness. For weeks, the crew endured the nerve-shredding routine of deep-sea recovery, monitoring strain gauges, watching positioning systems, holding their breath every time the ship moved against the ocean's restlessness. Clementine found K-129 exactly where the Halibut had left her 6 years before. The arms opened, the jaws clamped onto steel that hadn't been touched since 98 men died aboard her, and the long climb home began. 8 days, feet per minute. 3 miles of pipe string groaning under hundreds of tons of submarine wreckage, the heave compensators working constantly, Soviet ships still drifting on the horizon. 8 days of held breath and strain gauges and the terrible arithmetic of how much steel can bear before it gives. Then, at 8,500 feet from the surface, halfway home, the claw broke. Several grabber arms fractured under stresses nobody had fully anticipated. The hull, weakened by years of corrosion and implosion damage, was more brittle than any test had prepared them for. A 100-foot section of wreckage, containing the missile compartment, the code room, the cryptographic gold mine the entire operation had been built to recover, sheared off and plummeted back into the abyss, disintegrating on impact. 6 years, billions of dollars, gone in seconds. But the forwardmost section held, and on August 8th, it emerged dripping into the moon pool. 2 nuclear torpedoes, Soviet instruments, metallurgical data, design insights that would take years to fully analyze. and 6 sailors. Their remains preserved by cold and pressure, undisturbed for 6 years, one reportedly still in his bunk. On September 4th, 1974, the crew of the Hughes Glomar Explorer held a military burial at sea. The Soviet naval ensign was draped alongside the American flag. The Soviet anthem played. Bugles sounded taps. 6 men who had died as enemies were committed back to the ocean with full military dignity, filmed quietly by the CIA, classified for nearly 2 decades, and eventually shared with Russian authorities after the Cold War ended as a gesture of goodwill. The secret held until March 1975, when journalist Seymour Hersh broke the story in the New York Times. When pressed for documents, the CIA responded with a phrase that had never been used before and has never stopped being used since. "We can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the records." The Glomar Response, born in this moment, still invoked in classified battles to this day. The Soviets, furious and embarrassed, could do little. The ship had already left. The mission was over. And while many labeled Project Azorian a partial failure, the missile compartment lost, the code room gone, insiders told a different story. The recovered materials, the nuclear torpedo technology, the engineering insights, the proof that such an operation was even possible. The CIA internally hailed it as one of the greatest intelligence coups of the Cold War. The Hughes Glomar Explorer was later repurposed for legitimate deep-sea work. Her innovations in dynamic positioning, heave compensation, and moon pool design became the foundation for technologies used in offshore energy and ocean science to this day. And 3 miles beneath the North Pacific, the rest of K-129 still lies where it fell in 1968. Missiles intact, mysteries undisturbed, in the cold and the dark, and the silence that has always been the ocean's final answer to human ambition. The 8 men went down with her. 6 came home, in the only way the sea would allow. The rest remain where they are, waiting perhaps for a future that hasn't arrived yet.